In 2009, Susan Morgan left her business, her patients, and her house to spend 4 years in silence. No talking except for twice weekly meetings with her teachers. No internet. No phones. No connection to the outside world.
I was a worrier. For the whole first year, I would wake up in the morning in a state of alarm. Like, get out of bed, like I'm late for an appointment, or what am I supposed to do? Like, when you're in silence and you're just sitting and walking all day, you kind of start to notice those things.
She and her husband, Bill, lived at the Forest Refuge Center in rural Massachusetts, where they stayed in separate rooms and spent each day studying mindfulness. When the couple returned home from their silent retreat, daily life felt different.
You start to see slow shifts, subtle shifts, like I'm not as reactive and I'm more patient, and I feel more a sense of gratitude and appreciation.
Over the past few decades, mindfulness has emerged as a billion-dollar industry and a cultural darling for its ability to improve physical and mental health. But it can be hard to get past the hype. To understand the full potential of mindfulness, scientists are studying experienced meditators like the Morgans. What they're discovering is that mindfulness isn't just an effective stress reducer. It can actually change our brains, improving things like memory, creativity, and decision-making, so long as we actually know what we're doing. I'm meeting people whose minds stretch the limits of human potential, and the researchers who are studying them, to understand how we can all be healthier and more productive. This week, mindfulness. I'm Michael Tabb. This is Exceptional Humans. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about meditation?
The idea that you're to empty your mind. That's a futile practice to try to make it quiet, but more, how can you be a friend to a very busy, upset mind?
Susan Morgan has been meditating for 27 years, her husband Bill for almost 50.
Sitting practice is kind of the little laboratory that you create for yourself. Most of the time, daily practice doesn't feel good, but there's an awareness now of actually meeting myself where I am, recognizing that there's a need to attend to this crumpled up body.
There are many types of mindfulness, but the basic principle is to attend to the present moment without judgment. The point isn't to stop caring about things, but to get some space between yourself and the thoughts or feelings that might normally consume you. Morgan says this means shifting your perspective to see how we're all interconnected, and research shows it comes with lots of health benefits.
Back when I started this research, I understood that the science would help people understand that meditation was more than just sitting there, right? And that it was perhaps not so kooky as some people thought at the time.
Sarah Lazar is a neuroscientist at Massachusetts General Hospital, an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School. More than a decade ago, she started studying long-term meditators, including Susan and Bill, to better understand the effects that meditation has on the brain.
So as we get older, our brain starts to shrink. So one of the most surprising things we found in our first study with long-term meditators was that there were certain brain regions that were just as big in the older meditators as in the younger meditators.
Those preserved regions are parts of the brain associated with focus, executive decision-making, and awareness of your body. Long-term meditation also seems to preserve intelligence.
As we get older, our IQ drops with age. And what we see here is the yoga practitioners and the meditation practitioners, although there's some decline with age, it's nowhere near as pronounced as it is with the controls.
Lazar wanted to be sure these changes were caused by meditation itself, as opposed to being natural differences that somehow lead people to start meditating. To account for that, she did another study. Her team found dozens of people who had never meditated and had them take an 8-week course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. MBSR was developed in the 1970s as a secular form of meditation to treat chronic pain, anxiety, and illness. After they completed the program, Lazar's team put participants in an MRI machine and discovered something fascinating. Like long-term meditators, their brains were different too. In addition to being less stressed, people who practiced mindfulness for 8 weeks had more gray matter in parts of the brain involved in memory consolidation, self-awareness, compassion, and creativity. Meditating for a few months doesn't give you all the benefits of meditating for decades, but Lazar is now trying to determine if meditating for 8 weeks is enough to make you smarter.
We're in the process now of doing some studies where we're giving people the IQ test before and after the 8-week program. And so when the study is finished, we'll be able to say whether or not it actually increases IQ.
Of course, meditation isn't exactly new. It's hard to say exactly where meditation came from, but written records show people have been doing it since at least 1500 BC in ancient India. Westward immigration in the 19th and 20th centuries brought several types of meditation to Europe and America: mindfulness, mantra, and spiritual. Mindfulness started to take hold in the West in the 1960s and 70s, but the biggest explosion in popularity has come in the past decade. Mindfulness apps have become a billion-dollar industry.
We have, over 45 million people on our platform, so it seems to be resonating.
Dr. Megan Jones-Bell is the Chief Science Officer at Headspace, a startup that offers guided meditation through its app. In the growing field of mindfulness products, they're trying to set themselves apart by investing heavily in research.
We know that actually 10 days of Headspace is associated with about a 14% reduction in stress, about the same improvement in focus, and that when you use Headspace over the span of 6 to 8 weeks, that's when you start to see effects of reductions in anxiety and depression.
At its most recent funding round in 2017, Headspace was valued at $320 million. In early 2019, its main competitor, an app called Calm, hit the $1 billion mark. The commercialization of mindfulness has come with some criticism, that companies are selling access to something that's freely accessible anyway, promising health and productivity benefits you can get without a subscription service, or a coloring book, or a vacation. But lots of people find these apps to be an incredibly helpful introduction to mindfulness. These apps help you slow down and reap lots of the benefits meditation has to offer. Maybe you end up spending 4 years on silent retreat, or maybe not. But either way, it's important to recognize that mindfulness is about more than solving your problems or increasing productivity.
If we see it as a way to connect more with the parts of ourselves that we haven't opened to actually open up to more of our humanity, then I think it can be a real resource in our culture, because there is a lot of loneliness and alienation that needs to be addressed. But like with so many things, it can be abused or misused or not quite taken full advantage of as well.
Techniques only go so far. We're talking about learning how to shift a perspective over time, and that kind of fundamental shift requires something more than just technique.
Thanks for watching this Quartz member exclusive. This video is part of our series, Exceptional Humans. Keep watching for more stories on people whose minds stretch the limits of human potential, in everything from sleep to memory to meditation.